worked us in the day-to-day, but they've never told me that.
That's always kind of funny whenever they call it like that.
He's got like a little pop fresh thermal paste. We got a couple of guys that are really into them.
I mean, from my day, I'd be like, have you tried blowing?
Good morning, everyone.
Yeah, I do.
Good morning.
We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm glad you're here this morning. We've got a full house. It's really fantastic to see all of you. Some new faces. I love that as well. Welcome to IT Leaders Louisville. This is our almost our third year working down here. So as you know, this group was developed for staff IT directors and managers, folks who've been promoted from fabulous individual contributors to some level of incompetence as a leader. And that's really what we're focused on, is to help you help yourself work on your leadership skills. Many times we'll have training of some sort. HR trains us how to fire people. They don't necessarily train us how to retain. Sometimes you get generic leadership training or generic management training. Those are good programs. We try to focus a little bit more on IT, and I think it applies to many engineering disciplines, but that's really why we're here. Breakfast and networking and a couple of guest speakers for leadership skills is the format of the meeting. Bathrooms are out the door to the left, and then end of the hall to the right, and the room that's white that has the skylight, the bathrooms are on the right back there. So if you need those, we do have access to those today. Please take some photos of the speakers today, and you can send those to me. Here's my mobile number, and I think if you have the ability or if you have the inkling to use social media, then spread the word to your network about this meeting, because more is better in this group. I think it's super important to get the word out. We've got a gentleman from UPS here. That's the first UPS person. Some of the big employers around town have never been to IT leaders, so with your help, we can bring more and more people in. The best way to stay informed about the meetings that are going on here are itleaders.org/Louisville, the website. We also have a LinkedIn company page called IT Leaders Louisville. That's a great way to keep track of the reminders associated with that. I typically post every week between meetings about what's going on and when the next meeting is and who the speakers are. So that's an easy way to keep track of things as well. There is a community that's a private group on LinkedIn called IT Leaders Community, and that's a place for you to communicate with each other. We limit the members of that to non-service providers so that you can be honest and open about asking questions about service providers or hiring and that sort of things. I have got a moderator from Indianapolis who helps me maintain that, and he's actually helped me with a great number of the social media components that make up IT Leaders. So I would encourage you to have a look at that as well. I like to cross-promote. It's important, I think, to talk about the other meetings that are available. The more that you're connected in this city, the better off you are. I think the best time to network is 2 years ago, and the second best time is right now. So it's good to have connections all across town. Josh Higginbotham is involved with the Louisville Data Technology Group. Josh isn't here today, but if you're interested in that sort of thing, if you like data, you're in the right business, and this group is probably something that you might be interested in. We also have Rocket Women. Rocket Women has been an amazing source of driving good speakers to this meeting, and men are invited to Rocket Women events too, so I would encourage you to have a look at those. You mentioned that there's something coming up in Lexington?
Yeah, it looks like they have a lunch and learn in Lexington on Wednesday, July 31st.
Okay,
Looks like a panel discussion about women in tech.
awesome. Yeah, great group. Shannon Fear is amazing. Louisville Microsoft Users Group, you want to talk about that a little bit,
Yeah.
Leah?
I'll stand up. Hi, I'm Leah. I work at Mirazon. We run the Louisville Microsoft Users Group. This is a monthly meetup that we have been doing for probably 15 years.
That's
I wanna say.
awesome.
Yeah, we started it with Sullivan a long time ago. But this is really focused on technical skills for the most part for infrastructure people. So if you've got people that are doing Office 365 administration, server work, virtualization, things, that kind of stuff, this is a good group for them. Lumug.org. This month we are having an event. Actually, at our office we have a Dell computer demo truck coming. So if you want to see what's new with their laptops and their endpoints, check out the website. We'll have carnival games. We'll have food. It'll be a good time. And then August, we have a Microsoft presenter about securing, he gave it a weird title and I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. But go check out lumug.org. If you see something that's relevant to your team, send it to them. It's free. We run it kind of like IT leaders off of the generosity of sponsors. So also, if you are an organization that likes what we do and you want to sponsor, come see me after class.
Opportunity. And every now and then you're a drinking group with a technology problem, right?
We always have technology problems. We use the drinking to ease the pain. Yeah. I am trying to work on a holiday party.
Oh.
Where might be drinking. So
That
stay
sounds
tuned
good.
for fun events.
Cool.
Yeah, exciting. There are videos of these events that are on expedient.com, or I'm sorry, youtube.com/expedient/videos. We also do podcasts. We pry the presentations, the audio out of these meetings and publish those on a podcast called IT Leaders that you can find from your favorite podcast aggregator. So if you like listening in the car or you like the more passive approach to audio that audio brings, I think that's a great way to get connected. There we go. Transistor.fm, itleaders.transistor.fm will lead you to the podcast aggregators of your choice. All right, this is your part of the meeting. We like to talk about companies that have open positions, and we like to hear if you are in transition looking for your next role, what you might be looking for. So let's start with companies. Any of your companies who have open positions that you'd like to speak up about in here? Isaac?
Yeah, go ahead, yeah. Hi everyone, my name is Isaac. I'm with Louisville Geek. This is my first time actually being in IT Leaders, so thank you everyone. So I actually manage our Tier 1 team, which is the more entry-level, kind of fresh out of or not really high school, but kind of like college. We don't require like any certifications or like degrees or anything like that. So a lot of my guys on my team, I currently have 14 right now. There are people that have come from different backgrounds, like I have previous medical people, like I got a published author that's on my team now, people that used to work in like a chemistry lab, didn't think that was for them, so they kind of went into IT. So my job pretty much is to kind of show them the ropes of IT, kind of like get them up to speed, kind of show them how to use a ticketing system if they never used one before. Kind of get them prepped to kind of to explore the world of IT, kind of see like what they're interested in. So I get a lot of like people that are like in college or wanting to change their career path or whatever. But yeah, I have a couple spots open on my team. Love to meet anyone that has like a son, grandson, whatever. I don't really care. Yeah, kind of entry level role. Yeah, daughter. Yeah, daughter.
Maybe you go to Rocket Women.
So yeah, entry level. No certificates or degree required.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Isaac. Anyone else? Mark?
Hey guys, I'm Mark Hamner, engineering manager with Papa John's. I'm not actually here to talk about me or my company right now. I have two quick things, and I cleared this with Doug first, so I'm not going rogue. The first one is, I just want to say a big congratulations to one of our longtime Louisville IT Leaders companies. Waystar had an IPO last week and did very well, so great job, Waystar. Very happy for those guys. And the second, I am trying to find 50 female mentors for Western High School incoming 9th grade girls. Western High School here in Louisville is transitioning to become a math, science, and technology magnet, and they are looking for awesome women in tech to help mentor their freshman girls who are going to be starting next year. You do not have to be a programmer or an engineer to do it, but we would like it if you work either for a tech company or in your company's technology function. If you're interested, just see me after class, and I'd be happy to get you the expectations, and you can tell me if you want to do it. Thanks, y'all.
Fabulous. Anyone else with open positions, please?
I'm Brian Coleman, Vice President of IT at Restaurant Supply Chain Solutions. I actually have 2 positions open. One is a data analyst position. Another is a business analyst. So business analyst isn't posted yet on our website, but it's going to be focused on our transformation program that we recently kicked off. So if there's any interest, please see me afterwards or check out our website.
Thanks, Brian. Go ahead, Matt.
Matt at El Toro. We have several DevOps engineers and data science engineer positions open to various levels.
Excellent. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Please.
Hey, I'm Kellen Rollins. I'm at PharmaCord. And thanks for last time. I think Doug took it for me and announced some of our roles. But we've got data architect and senior Java positions. So see me after, hit me on LinkedIn. And lots of hiring going on over there. So.
Thanks, Kellen. Super exciting. Any final open positions, folks? Great. Who's looking for their next role?
I am. Hi, I'm Jennifer Burton. I was the director of Total Rewards at Sazerac, so I led benefits, compensation, payroll, HR systems, and HR reporting. And before that, I was the director of HR technology at Bright Spring Health. So I'm looking for a role in HR technology. I'm also looking, I love Total Rewards, so like benefits, wellness, anything like that. So I'm open, and I'm happy to meet with anyone if you know of any open openings.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Robbie?
My name is Robert Dunn. I'm going into my 4th year as a computer engineer at the University of Louisville. Looking for a co-op for my this coming fall rotation. I worked at Alltech down in Elizabethtown as a product engineer and data analyst last semester. Worked a lot in AWS Athena, ClickView and ClickSense, as well as a lot of Microsoft Studio, SQL. Mainly worked on their hybrid units they have down there. After working at Alltech, you drive around, you see all the Alltech trucks everywhere, which is kind of cool. So I worked in pulling data from those trucks and helping them manage some filings and data sheets and stuff like that. So I'm looking for a co-op rotation this upcoming fall.
Thanks, Robbie. Who else? Go ahead.
Mike McCarson. He's just starting out. I'm a little further down the road, up to 25 years into my career. So my company is now kind of in a migration merger process. They're doing some changes. Very small company. Started out developing, long history of project management, Scrum, and all that stuff. Last 6-8 years, heading up IT, infrastructure, whole 9 yards, that kind of thing. So it's not sure that I'm going to stay with the merger, the transition with where I am. So open to conversations.
Fabulous. Thanks, Mike. Anyone else? Last chance. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Hayden Brown. I recently graduated from Swarthmore College with degrees in applied math and computer science, and I'm looking for an internship or entry-level position. Yeah.
Fabulous, Hayden. Thank you. Final answer? Okay, great. Love that part. How can you help with this group? As I mentioned before, tell your network, tell your soccer field friends, your church friends, any of your other spheres of influence about this group and how they can work on their leadership skills. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Schedule some time with me so we can chat briefly. I think it's important to understand what you're looking for in your leadership journey so we can keep the topics fresh and meaningful and get the right speakers in here. If you know of good speakers, always interested. I'm doing planning right now for 2025, so it's important to bring quality content to you. 2 big thank yous. The first one to Centric Consulting. Chris, you want to talk a little bit about what Centric does?
Certainly. Can we have the Centric folks stand up? Who's here? AJ, Dion? So, good morning. We are a 25-year-old business and technology consulting firm, and I'm just so incredibly honored that we work with so many of you every day in the room. And, we truly, very much like what we talk about here every month, we pair our experts with your experts to accomplish incredible things in data and analytics, software development, cybersecurity, like the list goes on and on. But the beauty is, and AJ and Dion can speak to this, the way we bring the people side together with it through project management, change management. So just incredibly honored to be part of this and to work with all of you. So thanks for being here.
Centric has been really critical in getting the word out. We started this up with nobody in town, really, spreading the word, and Centric has been really key. We have a few service providers in the room, just so you know. The service providers who are here are leaders. They're here because they have direct reports and they're engaging appropriately and trying to learn the same leadership skills that you're learning. We have tech systems here. They tend to know where opportunities are, so you can talk with them. We've got Louisville Geek and Mirazon as well. All these people are leaders. It's important that we help each other when we can, when the fit is right. So I'm super glad that Centric's been involved. It's been really effective. And then my employer, Expedient, we've been doing IT leaders in Indianapolis for 8 years now. I can't hardly believe it's been that long, but we are a VMware cloud and colocation provider with 15 data centers. We do a lot of interesting work right now. VMware is a mess, frankly, right now. If that's a topic that's bothering you, I'd be happy to chat with you about that. We're also doing some interesting things with putting guardrails around generative AI usage. So if you like the idea of generative AI but don't want to leak company data, that's probably another conversation we can have. We are almost through the June 11th event. These are the other dates this year for IT leaders in Louisville. The December 10th event may be a happy hour. Maybe we can join forces and create a drinking group with a leadership problem. Okay, yeah, we may work that out since it's December. So don't miss these, though. I've got some really cool speakers coming up. In fact, the August 13th event is going to feature Chris Site, who is really the CIO of Louisville Metro. He's going to be speaking about leading the digital revolution. His team has done the most incredible work. We work with a number of cities across the country, and I just can't get over how many projects they've ripped through over the years and how much better they've made the city for citizens like you guys. Alex Perry, I'll be bringing her down from Indy. She's going to be speaking on strategies for effective communication. It's not always easy to explain IT to the leadership team. You can see their eyes glaze over sometimes when you're talking about the technology. She's going to be talking about that very specifically. She's fabulous. I'm glad to be bringing her down. Today's speakers, we've got Angela speaking first, and unfortunately Sue Fries, who was our planned second speaker, had a death in the family. So if you know Sue, please send her a note or keep her in your thoughts or in your prayers. But I'm your speaker. I'm your second speaker today. So Angela, let me get you set up here and let's get started.
Wow, good morning. So Doug reached out to me, and I'm so glad he did. I had not heard about this group, unfortunately. Now that I know about it, I'll probably be here all the time, and I'll be, inviting lots of other folks here as well. It's just amazing just to hear you all talking and sharing, positions that are open or looking for a position. That's really great, and just some of the folks that are in the room. It's great to see. So thank you, Doug, for reaching out to me to join you today. I'm super excited to be here. My name is Angela Ciliberti-Riegling. I am the VP of Product Strategy at QSR Automations. If you don't know QSR Automations, you should, or learn about it. I didn't know about them either until 2 years ago. I was at Brown-Forman just prior to being at QSR Automations. I'm a tech nerd, and I want to do development and work on technology. So there was an opportunity at QSR Automations to do that there. Brown-Forman is great, but It is a beverage alcohol, not a but. It's a great beverage alcohol company, but I do like technology and sitting down and developing new product and putting together strategy for new product. QSR Automations has been around almost 30 years. It's this little diamond kind of hidden away. No one really knows about it. If you're familiar with, if you go into a Chick-fil-A and you see those screens that are there, the kitchen display screens that are there that have all of your orders on those screens, that's what we do. That's not ours, that particular one isn't ours, but that's what we do. And so we handle kitchen automation in restaurants, primarily the back of house, so in the kitchen. And what we're doing is kitchen automation for processing orders, timing orders. We have 20 of the 25 largest table service fast casual restaurants. Think of, Olive Gardens, Longhorn, Chili's. There are others that I can't mention, but we have a huge customer base, which is really exciting. And like I said, it's just hidden. In any case, I'm really excited to be here. I started out, my background is engineering. I also went to speed school. I love doing software development, working with emerging technology. And there's several folks that I know in the room. It's great to see folks that I've known for a while, friends that I've known that have been at speed school with me as well, and seeing new faces. But I really enjoy that, and there was a point in time in my career where I just kind of sat back and there was opportunity that was presented to go more into a lead role or management role. And I evaluated that kind of pretty hard because I wasn't sure I wanted to let go of the development, which is what I loved. But obviously I eventually did move into a management role. And I've moved around various different places across the US and been in a variety of different roles. And what I have found is, as Doug has mentioned, you don't always get training, management training. And if you do get training, you don't get a whole lot about getting feedback. And feedback is just so critical for your development and for the people around you as well. For me, I was at Chrysler Corporation when I decided to move into management. And I did get training, which I was very lucky and fortunate to get training. But I will say the training on feedback was very light. And so that really wasn't there. And that's what I have found to be the case as I've moved to California and back to Louisville and all the companies that I've worked for. The training is light, especially around feedback, but it's critical. So when you talk about feedback, especially from a leader's perspective, it's often about giving feedback to your team or the people that you mentor or coach. What we're going to focus on today is feedback for us. And I'm going to leave you with a tool for you to do as well, and an exercise. Want to start off with this quote. I think it's pretty fitting. Feedback is the breakfast of champions. Take action and grow stronger. So I think it's perfect for the discussion for today, for our breakfast session. We're going to jump start the day talking about feedback and then giving a tool that you all can use and take action on and continue to grow. Oops. So as we look at feedback, we all know how important feedback is. And I want to kind of re-emphasize that with some research that's been done. So first, employees want feedback. And this is true for leaders. Employees want feedback. And research shows that 65% of employees want more feedback than what they're getting today. So they desire more feedback. 69% of employees say they would work harder if they felt their efforts were being recognized through feedback. That's interesting. Would work harder. I think that's an interesting stat in itself. We know it's very important. Employee value, feedback value perception. So employees feel, 75% of employees feel that the feedback they receive is valuable for them. So again, just reiterating the importance for employees and us as IT leaders. From an engagement perspective, feedback has a significant impact on employee engagement. So 98% of employees disengage from their work when they receive little or no feedback. That's huge. 98% disengage. When we say disengage, they're probably looking for another job. They're really not, if they're work from home, they're really not completely focused on work, those types of things. Digging into that a little bit further, it's kind of hard to see there. The relationship between employee feedback and engagement. So 40% of employees share that they are disengaged if they receive no feedback. And then employees who are actively disengaged, when they receive negative feedback, it's 22%. And if they receive positive feedback, only 1% are actively disengaged. So those are great numbers that just reiterate the importance of feedback. This is true not just as an individual contributor, but it's true as leaders and IT leaders as well. So in addition, research shows as you get promoted and as leaders get promoted, they get less feedback. So it's harder and harder to continue to get feedback as you get promoted. Just when you need it most to be able to improve yourself, to be able to work better with the teams that you're leading, you get less feedback. So, and we know that's detrimental to us as leaders to be able to continue to progress and to help our employees, our teams, and so forth. So, what can we do about that? First off, how many people here are fully remote? Show of hands. Is anybody here fully remote? Great for you. You're lucky. I'm assuming most of the rest are hybrid. I'm hybrid as well. I do think if you're fully remote, it's likely even more of a challenge in terms of getting feedback. But I don't have those stats. But as hybrid, it definitely is, I find that helps being in the office to be able to have some of those kind of impromptu conversations and just feedback conversations in general. But since you're, as a leader, you're getting less and less, what can you do? First off, feedback is there all the time. It's around us all the time. You don't even need to ask for it. It's just in conversations. As you're having conversations, what I have found, it's listening to those conversations, the tone of the conversations, the words that are used, the silence that happens. Those are all indicators, and you can read the feedback in those conversations and understand that without even asking. The next thing is truly ask. So you have to go out and seek it, especially as a leader. You know, you get less and less. It's lonely as you kind of continue to get promoted and move. You have to go out there and ask for the feedback. To ask for it, you need to, it requires effective listening. So you have to listen. You're not responding. You know, you're not thinking about responses as you're getting your feedback. You have to listen, really hear the discussion, and understand what's being said. It's an opportunity to motivate. Of course, if you're getting positive feedback, it motivates you. That's true if you're giving the feedback or if you're receiving the feedback. If you're getting constructive feedback or negative feedback, it can also motivate you. I know for me, if I'm getting constructive feedback, I'm like, okay, well, that was totally misinterpreted, or, well, I could have done better at this, and so I need to change X, Y, Z, and I want to do better. So that in itself also motivates. Feedback is a way to keep learning about you as you're getting feedback, learning about what other people, how other people perceive you, what works for them, what doesn't work for them. So it's an ongoing journey of learning, and getting that feedback is a big part of it. And then of course, with that, the learning helps with your performance and your development as well as an individual and as a leader, continuing to learn how to work with more people and hear what their feedback is in terms of what's working well for them or not working well for them, or how you presented something or didn't present something correctly. So all good points to just kind of keep in the back of our minds as we're thinking about feedback and how to get that as a leader. So when you're going to ask, of course, there has to be a plan. So we need a plan for the feedback. And I've got 4 different things here to take into consideration. One is identify a go-to question. I call that a go-to question. Of course, you can ask as many questions as you want when you're going and seeking feedback. However, it's always good, what I find is it's good to ask kind of a specific question. It helps really focus on what you want to learn about from the person that you're talking to. What is it that you feel like you need to really improve on? So with a go-to question, having that go-to question also will help you be prepared for impromptu conversations that you don't plan, because you have what you really want to learn. Having one go-to question also allows you to talk to multiple people and pick up on any themes across multiple folks. So that if one person says one thing, and maybe it's different than what other people say, well, maybe you just need to evaluate that a little bit more. Maybe it's just something specific or a particular instance that you had with that individual. But it's a good way to pick up on themes if you have that one go-to question. And you can then take that back and evaluate how you want to adjust based on those themes and seeing if there's consistency with that particular question. The next thing that I have when planning is ask regularly. There's many ways to get the feedback, we all know. Performance reviews happen regularly. They do 360 feedback in those performance reviews many times. That's one way to do it, but that's just typically on an annual basis, maybe a quarterly basis. You can do surveys as well. I know some folks in companies that I've been at, they've done employee surveys or surveys for me as an individual getting feedback. But what I'm really focused on here is more the one-on-one. Asking regularly one-on-one. I feel like having those one-on-one conversations, having the eye contact, having a deeper connection in regards to that feedback gets you a lot more information and is really helpful in terms of learning about yourself and what you're trying to improve in. So it also, having those one-on-ones regularly improves the chance that people will actually start to open up and share. Because when you first start having one-on-ones and you're getting feedback, it's hard sometimes. You don't always get people to open up and give you good feedback. So the more frequent you're doing that and people get comfortable with it, the more likely that people are going to start to open up and really share feedback. The next one is ask earnestly. So really be sincere about the conversation and be authentic. So really just kind of put yourself out there and ask for that feedback and have a good conversation. And then the last thing is prepare to take notes. So I take a lot of notes when I'm in meetings. It's not, in this case, from a feedback perspective, it's not notes of what my response is going to be or what I'm going to do. At the moment when I'm having the conversation, I'm taking notes about exactly what the feedback is. And then later, after the fact, I can put together my action plan. But making sure that you're really listening and you're showing that it's important to you what the individual is saying in that feedback. Thought this was a fun little diagram or representation of different types of feedback in the form of cookies. I'm not going to, I don't know if everybody can read those or not. It's interesting to recognize a little bit with the feedback, what kind of feedback you're getting. If you see that, there's something like Oreo feedback where you have a positive comment, and in between the positive comment on the front and the back end of it, it's maybe that negative comment, right? So, and that's fine. This is also a good way to kind of think about it as you're giving feedback and structuring things. I thought the next one, macaroon, was interesting. Elegantly worded positive thoughts around one very small negative thought. Okay, this is the political answer. This is, you want feedback, here's your political answer, right? It's the PC version of it. I'm not a huge fan of that one, but it is true. It's, people give put a lot of elegant wording around the negative thoughts. Black and white, I think, is a good one. Really straightforward. No nonsense. Just having a good, honest conversation. I like the other one, oatmeal raisin. Again, I find that one interesting and kind of funny, positive with bits of negative sprinkled in, right? So, and then sugar cookie, overly sweet and ultimately unfulfilling. So that's where, okay, I got to have more regular discussions with an individual to really get to an open discussion, because that one seems too sugary for me. The last one here is one to just be aware of and to don't fall into a trap. So this is the dough. So this is where the comments that are made or the feedback that you get is unbaked, and it's completely unfiltered. So it's good. You're getting some good, honest feedback. However, you got to be cautious that it doesn't turn into venting. So, which leads me to my next topic, which is traps to watch out for. So the traps to watch out for, in my experience from feedback, is where people are avoiding to have the difficult conversation. It can feel safe to avoid difficult conversations. Nobody likes to, be uncomfortable. Nobody likes to say something that maybe someone isn't going to really want to hear, but you need to hear it, or I need to hear it, or just need to do something about it. So if it goes unsaid, you're never going to know. So that's why you're trying to get to those open, honest conversations. But false harmony is not a path to success. So if nobody is saying it, there's something going on, it's not a path to success. On the flip side, going back to that dough, if it turns into venting, that's a concern as well. So rehashing the same problems without actually solving anything, don't want to get into that pattern. Got to take action and either change a perception or actually do something to change how you're operating to developing and grow. The other thing from a venting perspective to watch out for is, okay, so some folks don't like to have that hard discussion. And so they're not going to have the conversation with the individual or with me or with you. Instead, they go and talk to someone else, right? They talk to a third party. And so they're kind of venting to the third party, the other person, which may make them feel good for a short period of time because they got it off their chest, and whatever that feedback was, they were able to relieve it. But it didn't help the situation because I never heard it, or the person that was really needed the feedback never heard it. So it didn't change anything. So you continue to go through whatever that experience is until they receive the feedback. I think if you ever see that situation happening, it's good to say, to empathize with a person and, hear them out, but then also just reiterate that, hey, you need to talk to that individual and provide the feedback so that it can change. So those are a couple of traps to just watch out for when it comes to feedback. So I'm going to take a minute in terms of action for today, and I do have a little handout that I didn't put out on the tables before starting, worksheet. So after we leave today, this is the action for everybody to be able to do something with, is find at least 5 people today and ask them a question for honest feedback. So figure out what your go-to question is and ask them a question to get honest feedback. Then listen to them, don't respond, say thank you, and then walk away, reflect on it, and think about what do you want to do with that information? What do you want to do with that feedback? And then write down an action plan and take action. What I would actually say, I didn't put this in here, is have the conversation with a few different folks, right? So that you can build out that action plan versus just one individual. Not that having a conversation with one individual isn't impactful enough, but I think, like I said, it's really helpful to hear it from a few different individuals when you're talking about that one go-to question. So that's the takeaway for everybody today, and I want to take a few minutes to start that for you. I have a worksheet, and I will give you folks.
Can I help you pass that out?
Yeah, that'd be wonderful. So I want to take a few minutes for everybody to get this started. So first is to think of 2 go-to questions. So you can think of more questions than that if you want, but really you're trying to ultimately get down to one go-to question, one area where you feel like you really want to improve in. And then I have a couple examples of what some of those questions might be. How can I do a better job? What am I really good at? And what is one good thing I can do to support you better? Did everybody get one? Do we have any extras?
Yeah, one more.
We did one. I think that's.
I think so.
Okay.
Angela, what do you do when you give feedback to someone and they're defensive?
Ooh, good question. Well, when I give feedback and they are defensive, so I always try to reiterate that it's not to put anybody on defense. It's for us to grow as a team and for an opportunity for us to learn. And I also phrase it in terms of us. And some people, don't like that because I try and especially when you're in that situation where it's a defensive, if people take defense to it, if you start saying you, or it just continues to create that defensive reaction. So I try to phrase the conversation around us or we as a team to help kind of not keep it in that defensive mode. But I also ask for feedback back. So if I'm giving feedback and I see it's kind of gone into a defensive reaction, I'm like, okay, well, how can I help you? How can I, do something different to help you so that you're not reacting in a certain way or what have you. The other thing I'll do is if I see it's going that way, I might cut it a little bit short and then come back to it later, right? And then have that conversation later so that it kind of sets that there's this feedback out there and, I've given a little bit of that conversation or had a little bit of that conversation, but if it's getting, really defensive, then I might kind of shorten it a little bit and then come back to it later because that seed has been planted, that there's something there and it gives them time to kind of think about it outside of the actual discussion. I'm open to other questions, but let's take a minute for everybody to do this, and then I'll come back. We can come back and do questions. So think of 2 go-to questions that you are interested in getting feedback on. Then start identifying at least 3 people that you want to take this back to and have the conversation with. So it's really starting to build out your action plan. And then we'll just take maybe 5 minutes. And then we'll come back together, can talk about it amongst your tables in terms of your questions. And then we'll come back together, and if anybody feels inclined to share any of their questions, love to hear some.
It may be just me, but how can I frame the second question, what am I really good at, without seeming narcissistic?
Well, that's a really good question. Well, I will say, so I frame it in terms of, maybe not that so much, but I frame it in terms of what do I do well, what do I need to improve on? right? So I give both. I give both, so it doesn't sound like I just want to hear all the bragging, or I want to hear all the good stuff. So I would phrase that in terms of what do I do well or what do I not do well.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay, well, we can bring it back together here. I think a few people walked out. It's a good time for a bio break. Anybody feel like they want to share one of their questions or that you came up with or you talked about?
I'll share one.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so how clear am I when I communicate instructions, deliverables, and expectations?
Wow. Can you repeat that for everybody?
Yes. How clear am I when I communicate instructions, deliverables, and expectations?
Nice. That's a great one. Anyone else? Yes.
What are my strengths that I should lean into, and then what can I do to help better support you?
I like that. What are my strengths that I can lean into? That's a great way to phrase that question. I love it.
It's less narcissistic, right?
Yes.
I said, what am I already proficient at, and how can I use those skills in other areas to improve?
Another great one. Yeah.
More for the people like under, I guess, that report to me, am I giving you all the tools that you feel are needed to succeed?
Excellent, right.
Yes.
That's what I have too.
Yeah. Yes.
I've got sort of two, similar to theirs, but two sides of the same coin. What can I do to make your job easier, and what can I stop doing to make your job easier?
I like that. Yes. Some really good questions. We should have a way to capture all of this, but I guess it is recorded, so we can steal some of the questions from other folks, because I really like several of them.
I've got another one.
Oh.
What is something that I do that you find limiting or frustrating?
I think you've done this before. Yes, you've done this before, right? Chris, yes.
This is just, I mean, it's kind of anecdotal, but yesterday we had meetings with all of our succession candidates, you know, people who will become future leaders and partners of the organization. And we always ask, like, what is the thing that I can do to support you? And the things that come out of those meetings, like, it really, just laying it out there opens doors. It's like, who could I be introduced to that maybe I'm afraid to do it myself? Or what idea could I sort of bake and share with somebody that could level up our organization in a new way? But I mean, you know, like,
Oh, that's really great. Yeah.
you don't hear those kinds of little nuggets of wisdom. So it was really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I love that. Oh, yeah. You definitely just have to ask, and people are so willing to share and, you know, really give you, because everybody wants to help one another, but also, you know, make a difference and improve. That's great. Yes. Anything else? Anyone else? Oops, wrong way. So that was everything. That's everything that I have, and I think I'm out of time as well. I would say connect with me on LinkedIn if we're not already connected. Also, any questions? Any questions of anything that I didn't cover or didn't go into enough detail about? Yes.
Do you have feedback as like a one-size-fits-all, or you tailor it if you're talking to peers or leadership or people that you are managing?
Yeah, I do. Well, I do have a go-to question that I like to try to address with everyone, although I may steal some of the questions that I heard here today. But I do tailor the conversation depending on which group, right? Because if, how can I support you? I have one-on-ones every week. Sorry, every other week. I changed that because it was too much. So every other week I have one-on-ones. And I end every conversation with, how can I support you better? And it's the same thing whether it's leadership or whether it's someone else. because, I mean, ultimately, we're all working together. We're all trying to support one another, and we're all trying to move forward. But I do tailor a conversation depending on who I'm talking to, but a lot of times the questions might be very similar.
Angela, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we have more coffee. I think we still have more coffee. And I'm excited to be able to present to you today. The question that I've asked myself many times, I find new leaders asking themselves the question, and I find existing leaders when their team changes or when they're struggling, how do I lead? That's really what I want to address today. And I've got a few book references that I'd really encourage you to lead. But I want to tell you a little bit about myself, first of all. I've got 41 years in IT. I've got a lot of miles on me. I've been a service provider. I've been an individual contributor. I've been a director and a manager. And I've also been a team lead. Lots of team lead and influence. So part of a team, but having influence on existing team members. My role right now, I'm the only person who does what I do at Expedient. But I work very closely with the Indy team and some of the other teams as well. So don't forget you can have influence without having direct reports. It's really important, and you can lead in that fashion as well. I've been delivering IT leaders for 8 years, both in Indy, in Louisville, and now in northeastern Indiana at Fort Wayne. And next week we're going to deliver our first Denver IT leaders. And it looks like Phoenix is going to be nearer to the end of the year. So building these communities where you can meet with people, some people call networking misery loves company. Frankly, just knowing that other people are doing the same work that you are, I think is reinforcing to your skill set. And asking them what they do to solve problems, I think is important. The last 8 years I've been spending with cloud and colocation services at Expedient. We've got a data center in Indy, that's our closest. But it's an amazing company. The fact that they let me spend my time and their money to put on community events like this and to bring value to the community first, I can't say enough good things about the company I work for. I have got a number of approaches that I think have served me well and I've seen other people implement. I think the starting point to be a good leader is to know yourself. There's a few different ways you can do that. I think assessments are an easy way to do that. I think there are 3 assessments that I value because they're cheap and they're easy to implement and they give you meaningful feedback in a few different dimensions. How many have taken DISC over the years? Do you remember what your profile is? You're an I? So you talk to everybody, right, Kate? D. You're a D, decision maker, command and control, make it happen. Any S's or C's in here? You're a C? You're compliant, Dion?
I'm very compliant.
That surprises me, but I believe you. Yeah, I think those are good. Why are they useful? I think they're useful in order to determine where your strengths are and maybe where you're weaker, and also for your team members, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Working Genius was just presented to me at the IT Leaders Northeast Indiana last month. Terry Gower, you can look this up on YouTube or on the IT Leaders podcast, talks specifically about the Working Genius. It's a $25 assessment. Oh my God, that's a cheap assessment. So it really lets you figure out where your role is in terms of productivity for your organization. So the boss is likely to say yes if you need to get approved on $25. You can take it yourself and you can involve your team as well. There are 6 different categories denoted by the acronym WIDGET that show where you might live in a continuum. And I think it's super useful, especially in terms of how you relate to other team members. Strengths Finder, anybody done that? Another cheap one, good book along with it. I think it has the most dimensions, which I actually think is valuable. Some of these are so narrow that it may be difficult for you to find meaning in those. So Strengths Finder is an easy one. You actually buy the book, and you take the test. Gallup owns that product now. Not only assessments, but just like Angela said, feedback is important. Talk to your friends. Any husbands in the room? If you need some feedback, ask your wife. She'll tell you exactly what she's thinking, and vice versa, I think. And your friends, I mean, your good friends will be honest with you, and your boss, be candid. Don't wait for your turn to talk. Listen when that comes along. Take the feedback. Listening is one thing, but actually acting on the feedback and moving forward. I was very defensive in my youth on feedback. It was terrible. And I got called on it by more than one leader over time. And frankly, I didn't learn how to shut up and listen until I was 40 years old. So, it's embarrassing to think back through that, but they were trying to help. And when you frame feedback in those terms, it's extremely meaningful.
How did you overcome it?
Closing my mouth was probably the first move I made in order to do that, and stopping the that space between where we talked about waiting for your turn to talk rather than listening was probably second, even though it comes first in the sequence. So, yeah.
And mentors, I just wanted to add to that. Mentors help me a bunch with exactly what you talked about.
Yeah, getting some honest feedback that's maybe a little more unvarnished, maybe more of the black and white version of the cookie, I think is important too.
Having empathy and just being like, how would that make you feel if somebody came at you like that?
Oh, that's good.
And humility.
Yeah. I didn't learn this next bullet item until also fairly late in my career. Know what a good employee looks like. And I'm going to talk to you about a book that I think this is so important. What is it that makes a good employee is extremely informative when it comes to what makes a good leader. So that's know yourself. Next, you really need to know your team. And the place you need to start is to ask them about themselves. Anybody know about identity versus role? Have you heard that terminology? It's called IR theory, identity versus role. My role is I'm the director of national strategy for Expedient. My identity is I have a fear of missing out, and I love to overachieve. I love talking to people. Who am I? Ask who somebody is. Ask what a person's identity is. What kind of a person are you? If they answer project manager or systems administrator, politely remind them that that's their role. It's not who they are. So ask who they are. Christian, who are you?
Today I'm a mom.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great topic, right? I mean, what about your personal life? You play many roles in your life, and mom has some identity issues that account executive or systems administrator or software engineer don't have. So understanding who they are, ask them directly and listen. Let's not forget to listen. The assessments that I mentioned that are useful for yourself are often useful for your team. Now, there's a drawback to this. Don't weaponize the assessments. I have been in a couple of roles over the course of my career where we did meaningful assessments. Myers-Briggs is one of the older ones that has 16 different dimensions. And I so remember someone saying, well, you're an ENTJ, you're ugly.
We also talk about don't use it as a crutch.
Ooh, crutch too. Talk about that a little.
Yeah, so Durant and I are both highly social individuals. So, you might catch us talking in the hallway, and if somebody were to call us out using it as a crutch and say, oh, well, you can't blame me for that. I have a high, we do CI. I have a high B. I'm very social. But that's still using it as a crutch. Or, I'm not great with data analysis. Can you just do this for me? you know, that kind of thing.
We use
Thank you.
Culture Index as well.
Do you?
Use Culture
Do
Index?
you guys
Right
use my
person,
call?
right seat, huh?
Do you use my call?
Yeah, Mike is our guy.
Oh, we love
Oh,
him.
my call, yes,
Yeah.
sorry. I was like,
I thought
I
you
said
said
something
my
else.
call.
Yeah.
But yes,
My call.
My call is our CI consultant,
Yeah.
so we both use him.
So that's really important. You often need to know, you often need someone to help you collate the information. Terry Gower, the speaker at IT Leaders Northeast Indiana, helps with Working Genius. He actually helps debrief teams for a very reasonable price, frankly. Mike Hall sounds like he's good with Culture Index is the one that you're using. And there's plenty of DISC people out there. I think it's really important to get some outside help when you're trying to evaluate a team as a whole, even if it's 3 or 4 people, understanding how people fit into the puzzle and whether they're in the right seat.
We're just using the language for the first time, having someone help you adopt that and
Yes.
explain it.
Yeah,
'Cause
without
it can be
weaponizing
kinda-
it.
Yeah, because it can be kind of hard if you don't know how to handle it.
Not a weapon, not a crutch. Again, know what a good employee looks like, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Over time, as you're a leader, you're going to have the opportunity to build new teams as you have turnover on the team, or you're going to be able to move people around in those roles. If you're growing, you may just be adding to the team. So understand that building an ecosystem or a group that's effective is an ongoing process. It's not one and done. We're done now. It doesn't happen that way. It's really important, and it's important to know your team in order to have it happen. Thought diversity is a superpower, and I want to tell you a story about a coworker I had who ended up being an employee at Methodist Hospital in Indianapolis, Gary Bruce. I worked with him for years. He was one of those guys who, if you showed up at 8:01 in the morning, he'd be like, "Good afternoon, part-time." Pretty intense guy. We would have a lot of discussions on problem solving around the table when I was a leader. Here's an issue that we've got. What are your thoughts on how to solve that? Gary would never speak up at the table. Most of us would throw out ideas and we'd reflect on those, maybe have some discussion. The next day, Gary would have the best idea of all. Once he had a chance to think about it, he didn't want to do the ready, fire, aim thing, but given the chance to focus on it and critically think about the problem, he often had the best answer and his solutions were often the best ones. Doug Thies is not wired like that. Doug is more of a ready, fire, aim guy, or let's talk about it, let's iterate quickly right now. So I use Gary all the time when we're talking about leadership. Understand your team. And he had different characteristics than me on the Myers-Briggs that we used back then. I know exactly what kind of a DISC profile I bet he has. Haven't seen him in a while, but understanding who he is, I could have done much better work. Okay, we talked about knowing yourself and knowing your team. I cannot emphasize how important this became in my career, especially after I became a leader. Know what you must give up. Anybody read the book Essentialism? Oh my gosh. Probably one of the best 10 books I've read in the last 2 decades. Greg McEwen is pretty loud on LinkedIn. I would encourage you to follow him. He's easy to access. His system is quite simple. I'll give away the punchline here. Explore and evaluate everything that you're doing. Inventory it, write it down, put it in your iPad, however you tend to collect those sorts of things. Eliminate, determine what's not bringing value to you anymore. When you become a leader, especially if you're an individual contributor on that team, you often have to delegate, right? I used to be super technical. Had to give it all up. Not all of it. I had to keep people honest, frankly, especially early on, but I had to give most of it up. And I ended up being a better leader for it, and my team ended up being more capable as part of that. And then finally, execute. Do what you do, what you've kept, do it well. So an essentialist thinks less, but they think better. They do the disciplined pursuit of less. I think that's the hardest part, frankly. You can think about it all the time. Can you really give it up? The answer is yes, but it takes discipline. And then you get a life that really matters. It's not a long read. God bless the short business book writers. But I think it is an extremely important one. It was to me. So, know yourself, know your team, know what you must give up. Let's remember what we do for a living. We're IT people, and there are a lot of different strategies depending on your roles. Keith, you're an infrastructure guy. That's your heart and soul. You've probably got an idea of what the day after tomorrow looks like, probably for your organization. Some days you may not be as focused on it as others when stuff's on fire, but you've probably got an idea that you're moving towards SaaS more, or you're moving more towards a cloud environment, generally speaking, but it's probably not going to be pure anything. It's probably going to be a combination of other things. Security, any security professionals in here? Any have the whack-a-mole approach to security? It's a strategy. It's not a great one. Zero trust is a common one. Understand what those words mean. I think the project managers, being able to govern and help the organization understand what the priorities are and what's important are incredibly important. Brand new project manager sitting in front of me right now. You don't know what you don't know quite yet for your new organization. So you have a great ability to help. And then the support teams, like you were saying, Isaac, you're going to have to teach them to be psychiatrists and kind people in spite of the person who's on the other end of the line. Know what's important to you. Any thoughts on this? Any things that surprised you as you became a leader on the strategy that you believed was going to be effective versus what really came to fruition?
It's ever evolving because it's based on situations and projects where you would have one strategy for one item, say today, you go in 2 years for another event, it may be totally different. You're not going to always be consistent. You're going to attempt to be, but as things change, we change, people change, you have to adjust to that.
What do you think dog years are in IT? Is it 7 years? Is 1 year 7 years? I think it's faster than that now.
It's gotta be. It's gotta be.
I really think it is. That ever-changing attitude and idea is super important. So you better have a framework when it comes to your discipline that can last more than 6 months.
Yeah. Well, even more important than that, you got to communicate your strategy.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Keith.
Then if they don't know where your head's at, then they're going to be questioning, like, I don't understand where we're going, so you got to sit down with them and say, here's my vision, here's where I want to get us.
Yes.
Hope they come along.
Do you think that if you don't communicate it, they'll adopt their own, or, yeah?
Or adopt none.
Or do what?
Or adopt none.
Or do nothing, just last in, first out?
I was going to say that is basically not only knowing the IT strategy, but knowing how you contribute to that strategy as your team does. Because there may be work that is not that exciting to do, but it's critical to the strategy. And I think helping people understand that and see that can get you through some of those tough times. Or hey, you're spending your cycles working on things that aren't really taking you to the direction that you need to.
But I like working on those things that are worthless. Okay, that's great. Duran.
The thing that resonates with me on this slide is the bad news early components. I'm working with a customer, and their chief complaint right now is when they get bad news late. Right? If they had known it was going to happen, or that it could have happened, they would have been okay with that. But figuring out after the fact, when things have already fallen apart, that it's not going well, not acceptable. So.
My IT leaders boot camp instructor who did our Leadership 101 boot camp for many, many years before she retired a couple of years ago in Indy. Her motto is bad news early is good news.
Yeah.
And it is not limited to the project management strategy. I think it's super important. Yeah, really powerful. Anybody else?
How about knowledge transfer?
Yeah, we talk about it a lot.
Because that is critical for all these infrastructure to put it into the knowledge transfer.
Yeah, we talk about it. We talk about cross-training. Do we do it? 20%, 30%? How good is your organization at doing that? How good is your team at making sure that happens? Go ahead.
One of the things that I've been working on is like truth and visibility. So some people will say, well, this is what's happening, and then you end up getting the data set, and it's, well, no, not really. So we've been getting data sets and just publishing reports out there, and people can see for themselves like what's going on, and it's created a lot of different conversations that we're having.
That's a topic in and of itself. You know, Kanban boards are often most valuable because everybody can go look at them. You know, if the work in process is often invisible, a lot of the work that IT does is invisible. I think that's super important. And I'm not sure whether asking someone to review a report meets the criteria of visibility or not, but I think it should. I mean, I think we all have responsibilities like that to review those things. Please.
Yeah, one of the things that I've seen, I come from a very large organization, and there's several VPs within IT alone.
Yeah.
And your IT strategy depends on who you ask. So you have, and as it goes through the layers, it changes a lot. It's amazing how that changes what the IT strategy is.
It does, and that's why we have disciplines in IT, right? Because we all have to divide the work and conquer the work. Yeah.
But what one person hears is not what one person says.
Oh my gosh, so true. A couple of notes on this one. Leveraging outside perspective is a superpower. It is not often easy or obvious to do. Vendors and service providers are one of the best ways to do this, especially seasoned people, think old, who have done the work for a long time and have the ability to see many, many organizations trying to do the same work. This is where a lot of the work I do these days. In the last 10 years, I've spent more times just coaching people on how to move forward. If this is an area where you could use some work, chat with me. I can at least give you some advice on where to get started on this. I think it's super important. Okay, we've talked about yourself, we've talked about your team, we've talked about what to give up, we've talked about, what's the last one? IT strategy. Let's talk about beliefs on leadership. I'm going to talk about 3 broad categories here. I'm not going to go into detail in this talk because we're running out of time, but you will get the presentation from both Angela and from me in a follow-up email so you can examine these on your own. Remember to be a good employee to be a good leader. Cy Wakeman is amazing. She is one of the most interesting leadership speakers I've ever heard. I had the good fortune to hear her live probably about 6 years ago, and I've read every book she's ever written, except for the most recent one, which is called Life's Messy, Live Happy, which is in my stack right now. Her formula in her second book, Reality-Based Rules of the Workplace, this is about being a good employee. Your value is your current performance plus your future potential minus 3 times your emotional expensiveness. Read drama. Read drama in emotional expensiveness. Ditch the drama is one of her mottos, and your ego is not your amigo. That's another one of her real important messages on this. These are her metrics on if you're really looking as a good employee to edit your own story and not to be a venter necessarily, or not to be a victim, or not to get caught up in what's not important in your job. This 5-step process is really powerful. I think though, what do I know for sure is really important, right? We make assumptions all the time. Well, she said this, so he thinks that I'm this or that. I don't know that for sure. I know that the person I'm thinking of is trying to get some work done, and that's really about all I know. So I'm not going to read through this. I will recommend that you grab this book. Remember, if you know how to be a good employee, you've got a boss, and he or she probably cares about that. It is a long way towards getting to the good leader. Her first book is called Reality-Based Rules of Leadership, and it is also a great book. So both of hers. My first speaker at IT Leaders in Louisville was a Centric Consulting guy named Brad Clark, who's amazing, and it was probably the single best topic I've ever heard in an IT Leaders meeting in all these 50 meetings that we've held over the years. And it was based on a book called Conversational Intelligence by an author who's no longer living, who Brad had the chance to meet before she passed. And it's really about bringing a company's culture to every conversation. I'm going to read a few sentences here. I'm not big on reading slides, but I think these are important. Greatness depends on culture, which depends on the quality of our relationships, which depends on the quality of our conversations. How real does it get? Every single conversation that you have can have an impact on your culture. Conversational intelligence is hardwired and learnable, and it's about connecting and navigating and growing with others, both in your organization and really any relationships that you have. So how you show up in those conversations has an impact every single time. And then relationship precedes tasks and transactions. Trust drives output, and trust starts with conversations. Take a look at these. We usually only see our own point of view. Remember the feedback discussion and how good am I at listening? What's that guy talking about? She doesn't know what she's speaking of. I know all about that. Shutting down because of fear. We have 1,000 fears as human beings. Fear of looking stupid. My boss talks about it all the time. That's his biggest fear. He knows it. He's self-aware about it. He fights it every single day. We all do. Not hearing what's really said. Oh my gosh, makes my stomach hurt. Listening to reject, which is closely related to the desperate need to be right 100% of the time. And asking questions for which we already have our answer. All of these are poisonous to driving culture and having meaningful conversations. This is really kind of the punchline of conversational intelligence, that tell-ask, the most basic transactional form of communications, command and control leadership. And then the advocate and inquire is the next level, and then share and discover is really the growth. This is an amazing book. It is hard to get a hold of, this book. If you like reading and learning, and if you don't read any other book I've mentioned today, this is probably the one that I think may have the most impact on you. Conversational Intelligence by Judith Glaser. And then finally, another speaker I had in January of 2023 at IT Leaders Indy, Sarah K. Robinson. She is a force of nature, first off. She is one of the very first humans trained on StrengthsFinder after Gallup bought it. And she has the amazing ability to talk about how your 5 traits actually interact with each other that make you who you are, which the book and the materials don't really address. So she's really powerful, and she's a good integrator of that information for your teams when they come. Her podcast and her video are available in the January 2023. FRESH is an acronym. Feedback. We know all about feedback now, thanks to Angela. Rewards. This is so important, and I don't know that I've ever understood that understanding what's rewarding for each of your employees gives you the best chance to help motivate them and help them be engaged. And engagement comes next. Identifying employee skills and thoughtfully placing them based on their skills is probably the best way to drive engagement. And you're 1% not engaged when you're actually focused on your employees. That number is amazing. I mean, it's 0 functionally. And then service. Give meaning to your employees' work. If they understand the why of the company, chances are they understand their own why. Maybe you can help them illuminate that. The intersection of those 2 whys is your job as a leader. Find it. And then human connection. hybrid work has driven more loneliness than I think any of us really understood. Anecdotally, I have noticed that people who are forced to go into the office even 3 days a week are kind of unhappy because they want to be remote. And the people who are home 5 days a week are kind of unhappy because they don't feel the water cooler culture like they used to. So we've developed this new work model where everybody's slightly unhappy. That connection needs to be managed directly and purposefully. Do I have answers? Your team is really the key to your answers and the people that are on your team. I've talked many times at the beginning of IT Leaders about new managers. They often lead away from a crappy manager they had. I'm not going to do that. Or they lead towards a good manager they have. I think that lady was brilliant. She was the best leader I've ever had. I'm going to do what she did. And they often leave their team behind and the nuances of their own team, at least on that first iteration of leadership. So don't miss that. That's an easy one to fix. Keep your team in mind as you lead. So finally, iterate your approach. Teams change, organizational leadership changes, your boss is going to change, economics change, priorities change in the organization. Prepare for the change by knowing what your beliefs are in leadership. I named off be a good employee. I named off conversational intelligence, bringing culture to every conversation and keeping that fresh leadership model in mind. Those are 3. I've got 7 more books I could talk to you about that I think are meaningful, but these are the ones that really I come back to again and again. If you build yourself a framework for leadership that's meaningful, any of these changes are going to have less of an impact on how you approach the leadership equation over time. Know yourself. Know your team. Know what you have to give up. Know what your strategy is. Know what your leadership beliefs are. These are my 3. They've changed over time. And then iterate. That's the approach. Thank you. Any questions or any thoughts as we close? Fabulous. I am so glad that you're here. You are the only one who's going to work on your leadership skills. Your team may care more about your leadership skills than you do, but you're the only one who can work on them. So keep at it and tell other people about this meeting. It's important. More is better in this meeting. We need to fill that room across the hall that holds twice as many. We have 42 people here today. We are growing at nearly every meeting, so please spread the word. Thank you for coming today.